Welcome to the She Will Shine podcast, where we bring you the real stories of female business owners. My name is Danielle Price and I'm the founder of She Will Shine, a supportive business network for women. It's time to give a voice to women in business and discover their journey.
Hi everyone and welcome to the She Will Shine podcast. Today we have the lovely Erin Huckle with us. Hi Erin, how are you?
Hi Danielle, I'm really good, thanks.
Thanks for being here today. For those who may not know Erin yet, Erin Huckle is the founder of Chuckle Communications and is in the business of raising the profiles of her clients through proactive PR, amazing award entries and compelling written content. With almost 20 years of experience in PR, Erin has worked across sectors including tourism, IT, major events, not-for-profits and publishing. Based in Wollongong, Erin is a mum to 3 very busy boys, and in her spare time, she loves any opportunity for a rare moment of peace, ideally with her head in a book, I should say. Can I just say, Erin, that's my ultimate, just sitting with my head in a book.
I know, and us working mums know how rare it is to get that opportunity.
So simple, and yet it so rarely happens.
No, that's it. I'm not asking for the world. I'm just asking for a quiet corner and a book and a cup of tea.
And a hot cup of tea.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us today, Erin. I wanted to start off by asking you, did you always have a love, like obviously for reading, but also for writing?
Yeah, I've always loved reading and writing. I'm actually the daughter of a librarian. So my mum was the town librarian when I was growing up, and books were always just a part of our world. I spent a lot of my time at the library with my mum and reading. I was just a voracious reader from a really young age, and also loved to write. And I went on to excel at that at school, and then go on to do a communications degree at university, which included a professional writing component. So I always knew writing was in my future, but I don't think I ever believed that you could really just make a living from writing. I think that was kind of something that felt like some kind of dream come true, especially because my first job out of uni was working for HarperCollins publishers, the book publishers. And
yes, yep.
I saw firsthand how hard it was to make it as an author 20 years ago. Times have changed a little bit, but it was, the idea of writing for a living just felt like some kind of fantasy.
Well, I don't think, because I used to love, like when you said your mum was a librarian, my heart just went, because I wanted to be a librarian. I was like, year 7, obviously you go to high school, they've got a bigger library and they have a full-on librarian. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my dream job. Yeah. But that's, I guess, through high school and stuff, I don't remember them ever sort of promoting author or copywriter. I don't know if your school was the same, but it wasn't really an industry that many people knew much about.
No, and I guess, you can probably relate to this being someone who uses creativity in your work. I think there was a lot of, in school, when you excelled at art or you excelled at creative writing, you weren't then told by your teachers, well, that's going to set you up for life. That's you sorted for, your career. It was kind of like, well, that's great. But it's not really a career that you can hang your hat on necessarily. And I remember having that same thought. I wanted to be a librarian like my mom, but then I thought, no, I don't want to just be the same as my mom. I want to carve my own path. And she was actually the one who suggested PR to me, because she said, you love communicating with people, you love writing, and that might be a good path to follow. So off I went and did my degree, and that was the beginning of the rest of my story.
The rest of your story. And did you have any thoughts at all, one day I might run my own business? Any thoughts at all?
Oh gosh, no. I think I was very much someone who, I was someone who actually did really well within the traditional school system, and I'm someone who I guess has thrived in environments where it's been like, okay, so then I complete this point, and after that I go to this point, and it was all
here's the flow chart, and this is how you go through.
Here's a formula to success. So it was like, do well at high school, okay, tick. Go to university and do well there, tick. Get a job out of university that you're happy with, tick. It was kind of like following these steps, and I never thought I would own my own business. It wasn't until I actually did have about 4 years working for an amazing boutique agency in Sydney as part of my career. And that was my, I guess, first up close and personal view of what it's like to run a business. This was wasn't a one-woman show, obviously. She had a team and then 2 agencies merged. So we sort of had 2 founders who were directing us. They were both really inspiring women, but I saw how hard they worked. It just looked like you have to put everything into what you're doing. And they both had families, and I could see the struggle to maintain that juggle. And I thought, oh, that's not necessarily for me. I didn't have kids at the time, and then when I did start having kids, the security of maternity leave and a job was quite a nice thing for me at first. So it wasn't until baby number 3 that I realized the flexibility of being my own boss, could work really well for me. And I think also the idea of working on my own was something I never wanted to do, because I love being around people, just like you obviously do. And being in a team and bouncing off ideas and, having those social chats throughout the day. And I was really scared of missing that and losing that. But communities like She Will Shine have actually taken that place, have created that virtual colleagues that I can talk to and share ideas with, or share.
Kind of have that camaraderie, I think, as well, that you have in a team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's really interesting what you said then about you craved working in a team, because I wonder, because I was just reflecting on my own journey, and I wonder if that's why back in my designer life, I loved working with other women in business, because that we had that camaraderie. This was before She Will Shine was even an idea, but we had that camaraderie between us that, I've got your back, you've got mine. How's everything going? We check in with each other. So it's really interesting that you've acknowledged that you crave that from the get-go, whereas I kind of didn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely crave it. And I am still someone who I love being around other people, and I love opportunities to connect in real life. So that's made, I started my business about 3 months before COVID really started to rear its head. So I've not really known much business life without pandemic running alongside it. But the moments we've had throughout the last couple of years where we can get out and be around other people, it's just really filled my cup. So I've always been quite aware that I like being around people. I'm a people person. I'm not necessarily the loudest person in the room, but I do get a real boost from being around other people.
Yep. Yeah. So many things in common, Erin.
Thank goodness for Zoom, hey?
That's right, exactly right. Now I want to ask you, because I know your career took you overseas. At what point did that kind of come about?
So after I finished university, I worked in Sydney for a couple of years, and then my sister, who had just finished high school, and I and a friend hatched a plan to go traveling. So a bit of a delayed gap year, I guess. So we went on a round the world ticket. We went through Southeast Asia. We spent a lot of time in India. We went through Europe, and we ended up in the UK. And we were my sister and I were in the lucky position of having an Irish passport along with our Australian passports, thanks to my beautiful grandma, who was born in Ireland, and she turned 102 this week. She lives on the coast. Yeah, she's
amazing. Happy birthday.
Absolute living legend. Yeah. So through beautiful Florence, we got these Irish passports. So that was kind of our ticket to a bit of freedom over in the UK and Europe. And I ended up staying in London. I was only going to stay for a few months to make a bit more money, but then I got a job at a technology PR agency, and a few weeks later met a guy who is now my husband and has been for a long time, because that was 2005. So I was in London. I ended up being there for a few years and loved living in London. And then we moved back to Sydney. We lived there for a while, and then our lives took a bit of a change of track after we got married, and my husband decided to move from working in advertising, which he'd done for as long as I'd known him, and to retrain as a doctor. So that took us.
That's a big change.
Yes, it was such a big change. And yeah, he was Yeah, he was very committed to it. I thought, let's see where this goes. But he did the entrance exams, which are really, really tough. And he got in. And then for various reasons, it just made more sense for us to be in the UK while he was studying. So we then spent 6 years living in a beautiful city called Nottingham, which is a couple of hours from London, famous as the home of Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest around the world.
Beautiful.
And that's where our first two kids were born. And I worked there for 6 years, and it was a really, really fantastic time. But I think we both decided long term we wanted to come back to Australia, which we did. We came back in 2017, end of 2017. I was pregnant with baby number 3. And yeah, my husband was working in the hospital here in Wollongong where we live. And after my third baby was born and I started putting out feelers looking for a job, I thought, actually, I'm going to do this for myself. Let's have a go at doing this for myself. And I was really lucky. One of the friends I made here through the mothers group I joined was in the same boat, and we kind of supported each other in the idea of, well, if we can't find the perfect job, why don't we just each create our own job and see what happens. I was lucky. I kind of had nothing to lose, I guess, at that point. It was like, let's try this, let's see what happens. And luckily,
look at it now.
3 years later, it's going really well. So
I think that's such a benefit of being a service-based business in a way. Because I know when I started my graphic design business, all I needed was a computer, and invest in a computer, dial-up internet in those days with the but that's all I needed. So if a few $1,000, set yourself up, get your ABN, and away you go. So there's such a benefit in that, being able to start up initially on that low cost, and then as your business grows, invest in other things.
That's it. You've got such a lean, there aren't really many overheads, like you say. I think my biggest expenses were buying a new laptop and investing in some training to build my own website and kind of get that kind of happening. But it was, let's just see what happens. And I had such low expectations at the beginning. I'm sure a lot of people in our world were the same, especially service-based businesses. But I was so thrilled that people were willing to pay me to do this work. And I was definitely undervaluing, what I was charging and the service I was offering. At the beginning, I was just a bit too nervous to actually charge what I was worth.
We all go through it though. Like it's kind of part of the process, sorting out.
Definitely.
Actually, I am good at my job and people do want to work with me, and I need to be paid accordingly.
Exactly. And I think also seeing it from the potential client's point of view, I've heard a lot of people say this, but if I'm booking a provider for something, like if I'm getting some builders to quote on a job and one of them is drastically cheaper than the others, that doesn't necessarily make me want to go with them.
Like, hang on a minute, something's not quite right there.
It's not right. And it's the same with the services we provide as PR consultants and copywriters and designers. If your quote is really low, then it kind of screams inexperienced or sort of reeks of desperation.
Cutting corners or something. There's a reason why it's so low.
Yeah, where I think clients actually get a bit of confidence when they say, okay, that's kind of a healthy amount. So obviously you know what you're doing and happy to, like, I think someone once said to me, if every proposal you're putting out there is being accepted, then your prices are too low. So I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Erin, how did you find your very first client?
My very first client was actually through Facebook.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it was through a random, it was actually through a friend of mine on Facebook who spotted an organization she knew of called Mega, Mums Exercise Group Australia. And they had done a call out. They needed someone to help write their new website. And my friend said, oh, this sounds like something you could help with. And I'd been doing some voluntary work in the kind of parenting and birth space since I'd been in Wollongong. So I'd already kind of been doing a bit of writing in that kind of world. And I said, oh yeah, I would love to. So I sent off a letter of interest to them, and they said yes. And I had a really fun time working with them and helping them get the words for their website happening. And then I guess the next client was a friend of my sister's. And again, it was kind of a, okay, let's give this a go and see what happens. And then I was quite lucky. I started going to, just before COVID hit, I went to an in-person networking event here in Wollongong, and I met a couple of beautiful women there who have become long-term clients of mine, and the timing just worked in my favor. They both wanted to enter the local Women in Business Awards, and they were both time poor, and they said, can you help us?
You. Yeah.
We need you. Oh, you could write my entry for me. And I said, yeah, of course I could. And off I went. So it's kind of been and then it's just been a snowball from there, and clients have come from a variety of places. But I find being in groups and networks definitely helps. I also get a lot of word of mouth referrals from existing and previous clients, which is great. And I'm in some groups, so She Will Shine and a few other groups, which are a mix of businesses, and sometimes they'll end up becoming clients because they'll see what I do and they'll say, oh, I need some profile raising, or I need some professional copy written. So and I guess now I'm in the nice position of being booked up for a few months in advance pretty much all the time. So I've always got that pipeline coming through. So
yeah.
I don't say, a lot of people contact me and I have to just either refer them on to other people. And people were doing that to me at the start as well. Other copywriters referring me work, like Kate O'Mealy, who's in our beautiful She Will Shine group. She referred some work to me quite early on, and I was so grateful to her. And I remember feeling like overwhelmed that she would want to hand this work over. And a couple of years later now, I'm in that boat of, okay, yep, I get it now. Like, if you don't literally have enough hours in the day, you do have to pass work on to other people.
I find it really interesting. Copywriting is one industry where I have found you women are amazing in that sharing knowledge and sharing experience, and yes, referring on, but also like I know we have in our group a monthly copywriter catch up that you guys organise on your own, and away you go. But you're talking about pricing, things that are difficult clients, things that are really could be seen as, they're competitors and all that kind of rubbish, which obviously we don't agree with. But it's such that your industry has so beautifully embraced the community over competition, and in that, the jobs sharing, the knowledge sharing, I just find it incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I was quite blown away by that when I started. And I remember joining a copywriting group, and a friend of mine who I met through the group said when she joined, her husband said, why would you want to do that? Aren't they your competitors? And it was exactly what you're saying. Well, actually, there is plenty of work to go around. And I think most copywriters are natural communicators. So we love telling stories and sharing our experiences. And we don't want to work as an island in a little silo away from people. We like connecting and talking. And the generosity of knowledge sharing has really blown me away, like you say. And it's nice a few years in to be able to then return that favor as I see newer people coming into this world and looking for a leg up and looking for ways to sort of build their own copywriting businesses. And it's interesting too, because there are so many different sort of shapes your copywriting business can take. So many people continue as solo freelancers, and that's what they want to do, and they stick with that and they're happy with that. And then I've seen other copywriters who have actually started agencies who are then subcontracting to other people and managing strategy for big clients and taking on those kinds of big meaty budgeted projects, which also come with a lot of stress and expectation, which while my kids are quite young, I'm not quite ready to go into that world. But yeah, I feel like you can kind of, I guess this is true of any business, which especially service-based businesses, you can kind of create the shape of business that you want, whether that's I just want to work in school hours, or I just work this many days a week, or I only work with this kind of client. And I think when I first started and I heard people talking about niching, especially those who niche by industry, so some copywriters will just write about the building and construction industry or health or whatever it might be. I remember feeling like quite scared of that, because I thought, well, I don't want to turn away potential clients because they'll see my specialty and think, well, I'm not the right writer for them.
Yeah.
But now I see from the other side, actually, it just gives you a lot of clarity in terms of who your ideal client is and the fact that, yeah, I don't actually specialize by industry, because my copywriting business has kind of become more of a PR and profile raising business, which makes a lot of sense because that's what I've done for 20 years. But because of being overseas for so long, I was a little bit nervous at first about putting myself out there as a freelance PR when we got back and I was starting the business. I just didn't have like the up-to-date media contacts that I used to have. Everything had changed. The whole media landscape had changed quite dramatically in 6 years, and it continues.
It would have, because that would have been like social media suddenly came out, or not suddenly, but blew out of control.
Yeah.
And also we're seeing all these like printed magazines and newspapers dwindling and becoming online.
Definitely. Like in the online, publishing platforms that have done really well, like places like Mamma Mia, I hadn't really heard of them when I left the country in 2011, or maybe they were around, I can't remember. And even podcasts, they have become such a big part of content creation and such a big part of my world. But when we first got back from overseas, I don't think I'd ever listened to a podcast. I'm ashamed to admit. My head was in the sand on that one. I was in a cave, but now it's, I'm obsessed with podcasts and listening to them. So yeah, the landscape had changed a lot. But then I think once I started to see people really wanted help with profile raising, and because I do award writing as well, that's another big part of profile raising for businesses, and that kind of brings together the writing and the sort of PR hat.
It merges the two together
perfectly. Yeah.
And I think that's really important that that's obviously what you're really good at. So you're bringing your experience to that and you're sharing that with the world. So like you said, it doesn't have to be industry based. No. It can be a service based niche.
Definitely. Yeah. And I know there are some copywriters in our group as well, She Will Shine, who, specialize in website copy or specialize in, editing, or, they have different specialties that aren't industry based. So I think you can niche in different ways, and, find what works for you. And it just helps you kind of really distill who is your ideal client, and helps you connect with them more quickly, rather than trying to be this vanilla something for everyone kind of person, which is what I was guilty of doing.
One size fits all. Oh, we're all guilty of it though, Erin. Like Definitely. I think it's a rite of passage in a way, because you don't really know. For me, this is what happened. I didn't really know what sort of businesses I wanted to work with, because when you're in an agency, they're like, this is the client, you don't get much choice in the matter.
Yeah.
So then when you suddenly, this is my business, I get to choose, but you don't know what you want to do. So you've got to kind of sample the menu and then decide what you want for the main course.
It's true. It's a bit like speed dating or something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Trying to find the people that really light me up and the people that I don't want to see again. Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's like an initiation that I think everyone has to go through. And I'm almost a bit suspicious of anyone who starts from scratch and knows right from the day dot.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly the kind of business I'm going to run. I'm like, oh, wow, that's, where does that confidence come from?
And I guess it's the old, if you build it, they will come. But who do you want to come? Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, who are these people? So it's like, yes, you've got this business, but who are the people that you want to come towards you? Who are the ones that are going to gel? What you offer.
Exactly. And I think I've been really lucky in that a lot of my clients, even in the early days, I quickly realized were my ideal clients. So I've been able to work with them in an ongoing basis for a number of years, and as their businesses have changed and grown, I've been able to support them. There's this wonderful businesswoman here in Wollongong who I started working with her a few years ago doing copywriting for her website. And then she's since launched various businesses, and now she's launched a book, and I'm helping do the PR for that. So it's sort of great to be able to see how my services can kind of evolve as people need different things from me. So
yeah, you're on the same journey as them to a degree.
Yeah, it's really lovely, actually. It's I turned 40 last year, and my business turned 2 in the same month. So I had a lunch with some of my beautiful local clients and connections, and it was just so nice to have this table of all women, of course. Not that I've ever said my ideal client is a woman, but it just seems to be that that's who I attract in the majority. But it was just so great to look around this table of faces and think, wow, all of these people have worked with me, and
Yeah.
we've created.
You've made that happen.
And
You've created your own community of, your clients, but also your friends in that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can't imagine working for someone else now. It's funny, isn't it? I don't know about you.
I can't imagine writing a resume and having a job interview. I'm like, I've been working for myself for, I don't know, about 14 years or so now. And I'm like, oh, if I ever have to, I'm going to be screwed.
I know. There are definitely, I've definitely had moments where I've seen the appeal of perhaps the reliable paycheck and the reliable hours, but then yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I was talking with someone the other day, and they were talking about, being back in the office and catching up over cups of tea in the kitchen. And I was like, yeah, when you work for yourself, you really don't have any time for that kind of fluff. Like, it's really like my hours
it's true.
And my hours are still quite limited. I've got 2 out of my 3 kids at school, but my youngest is still at preschool. So I've only got 3 days a week that I can really get stuck in and work completely kid free. Luckily, my husband doing shift work means he can pitch in a bit as well. But yeah, those hours are so precious that I don't have any time to waste with.
It's funny because like how old are your boys?
They're 3, 5, and 8.
Yeah. And 3. I've only got 2, so my hat's off to you with that one. But I found it's funny because when they were little, I was like, I want to get them to school so I can work 5 days. And now I've made a conscious decision this year to only work 4 days.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting because I've kind of gone, yes, okay, I've got to work every minute that I can possibly get, and the kids are out of the house. And now I've pulled back a day just so I have a bit of, I don't know if I use the word balance, but have a bit of sanity, maybe would be a better word.
Yeah. I have a lovely copywriting friend in South Australia, and she has her kids she's got 2 boys. They're a little bit older than my kids, but she's done the same in that I think every Friday now it's sort of no client work. So it's her day to do some work, on her business. And like you say, other things for herself. And I can see that might be my preferred model down the track as well. When I do eventually get all 3 of them off to school 5 days a week, maybe it won't be a full-time job anyway. I mean, I feel like the beauty of working for myself, what I'm trying to say is the beauty of working for myself is I've had a bit of a journey of self-discovery around certain things about myself over the last 2 years. And one of those, which I've spoken about in various places, is that I've really realized I'm an early bird. So I do some of my best work at like 5 o'clock in the morning, which
I'm so jealous. I'm not one of those persons, but I want to be.
But the other end of that is I'm a complete useless. My brain is mush after about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So for me, the idea of going back and working in a sort of 9 to 5 environment is terrifying, because I've realized after lunch, I'm not anywhere near as productive. I'm nowhere near as creative, as that morning, like having that time in the morning, and the flexibility that I can get up and do some work before the kids wake up, or even once they're up, they're used to seeing me tapping away in the corner for a little bit. It's working really well for me. And it works well with the school hours as well. So maybe that's like you say, 4 days a week, working the hours that actually suit my personality and suit my my natural rhythm, just makes everything flow so much more nicely. So
that's the thing, isn't it? It's your business. You get to decide how you want to run it, and if that's what works for you, then why the hell not, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I was definitely guilty in the early days. Again, I've been telling myself these stories about what I thought a freelancer did, what I thought a small business owner did. So I remember my youngest was, pretty young at the time. He was 1, and I was pretty exhausted all of the time. And I would finally get the kids to bed, and then I'd drag out my laptop and sit there trying to do some work, and just hated every minute of it and resented it, and thought, oh, but this is what you have to do though when you're building a business. You have to work at night. You can't just put your laptop away and relax. You need to be on, and you need to be doing the hustle, But I've since completely realized that actually evenings are not my natural work time. I'm like pushing a boulder uphill. Mornings are my natural work time. I would much be happier going to bed at 8:30 p.m. knowing that I'm going to get up early and be productive in the morning. And it's kind of given me my evenings back as well, because I know I don't work very well in the evenings. I generally just don't work in the evenings ever. Like, it's my time, especially with the kids eat up every other spare moment around the business. It's kind of like, well, at least I know in the evening I can actually relax and take some time back for me. Sometimes 100%. With my head in a book if I can stay awake.
And that's your choice. Erin, I just wanted to touch on one thing that you mentioned there, because you mentioned that there was a lot of personal development that's kind of gone on at the same time as running your business. Did you expect that as a business owner when you were taking that first step?
I didn't. And I think that's one of the things I've really loved about this journey. It's part of it is I love the external validation of doing good work for people and having positive feedback, which is something, I guess it was about a year and a half there where I wasn't working, and we were moving countries, and I was being full-time mum. And in that period, I realized I do really want to work, because for my own sanity, or I really
crave that
external validation. So that was something that kind of I became aware of in terms of starting the journey. But I didn't ever expect that starting a business would lead to so much personal development. Like, obviously I thought, well, I'll get some professional development under my belt as well. I'll learn new things, I'll upskill. But it's been a really great exercise in getting to know myself better. And I think that's part of the fun is, realizing too that, whatever job you do, whether you run your own business or not, you should be bringing your whole self to work. No one lives in compartments of, this is work me and this is life me. We do to an extent, but really, I think if any silver lining has come from the pandemic, it's that those two worlds are blurred. So you can bring your whole self to work, and also you can nurture your personal self through your work and through what you're learning and through the development you're doing. It doesn't have to be, okay, these two parts of me are separate. So I think that's been a really nice learning.
Definitely. And it's not as though your work personality is different to your home personality. It's like, I think, and running your own business, that gets really, I don't know if accentuated is the right word, but that gets brought to the forefront, that it's like, well, you are your business.
Definitely. And I think that's something that is also a little bit scary to embrace when you are starting out your own business, because you think, well, especially when I was launching as a copywriter, I thought, well, I just need to be a, cardboard cutout of a copywriter, whatever I decided that should be. And then as the journey continued, I realized, well, the people who actually do really well are the people who bring themselves into the business, and they share their personality, and they're not afraid to show up and be true to themselves. And they're the people who you want to see what they're sharing on their marketing channels, and you want to read their newsletter, because it's not just how to write, copy, how to use a colon. It's like, it's actually got some personality about it. So I think that's actually becomes a superpower once you embrace that. Your personality.
And can I just say, you're in your third year of business this year, is that correct? It is, isn't it? Yeah, beautiful. And it's amazing. I see a lot of women who obviously start their own business, and over the years how they develop. And I think you've done a great job of presenting your authentic self over the time. I've probably followed you for the last 2 years, I think. And like, that's quite early on to be quite confident in doing that, because I see women who it takes like a long time to get to that point. So is that something that you're proud of? I think
I'm really proud of it. And I think it is definitely linked to the fact that I work in PR and profile raising. So it's that whole do as I say, not as I do. I don't want to be someone that's telling my clients, you got to show up, you got to be yourself, I try to lead by example. I think in some ways being in PR means you're usually in the background. You're not usually the one being interviewed on the podcast. You're the one putting forward your
behind the scenes
podcast.
Yeah.
But I think when my clients can see that I'm happy to put myself out there, and then when I'm encouraging them to do the same, I'm not sort of just, it's easy to tell someone what to do. It's harder to lead by example. So I've been trying to do that quite consciously because of the work that I do. I think I want the women who end up working with me, or the people who work with me, to see that I can at least raise my own profile as well. So I sort of have some, personal experience in doing that. And I've really enjoyed being able to be in a position to come on podcasts or speak at events, or show up on video, which again, a lot of people hate doing. I actually don't mind doing it. So I figure I might as well just get out there and do it. So I am proud that I've been able to do that in the time that I've done it, because I think I thought it would take a lot longer to get to this point. So,
and we've been through a pandemic. So how amazing is that?
Yeah, I know.
Brilliant.
I know. Although it's funny, I remember after was it the first or second lockdown? I don't know.
Who knows?
I can't remember, but I remember really struggling when I eventually got the kids back out of the house for a full day. I was just like flitting from one thing to another, like a really confused butterfly, because I wasn't used to having more than 20 minutes at a time to do work in. I've become someone that was just so like, okay, right, I've got to be laser focused for 20 minutes and then I can get back to what the kids are doing. And all of a sudden I had a whole 6 hours stretching out in front of me, and it was nowhere near as productive as I thought it would be. So it was
I think a lot of us went through that.
Yeah, like having to relearn how to work.
Relearn and unlearn, as people say.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been interesting.
How do your boys, dad's a doctor and mum runs her own business? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're great, actually. I've been quite open with them about what I do, and trying to involve them in various ways. There were definitely in the early days, there were definitely some comments about daddy going to work and mummy just stays at home and mummy doesn't have a real job. And so I've tried to make it more visible to them in terms of what I do. And I sort of try and tell them, I do this to help other people. Like, my job isn't saving lives, but my job does help.
It's still important.
In different ways.
That's right.
And it's still contributing to the household. So, the fact that I work from home, I'm guessing it's going to be much more the norm now for anyone, whether you're an employee or self-employed. It'll be much more normal for their friends at school to also have parents who work from home, even if it's just a couple of days a week. I think that whole, that's just become
sort of changed.
But I think they enjoy seeing what I'm doing. Sometimes they're quite curious, a little bit too curious. I was just telling you before we started, my Christmas present from my dad was a door in my office, because it never used to have one, and it does have a lock, and I'm not afraid to use it.
I love it.
So they've been great. They've been, and I do try and explain to them as well that because I work for myself, I can take them to various activities that I might not be able to otherwise, and we can go and travel places. There have been points over the last 2 years where we'll go and stay with my mum and dad, who live in country New South Wales, and I can bring my work with me and still be able to do that from there. So having that flexibility has been really good for our family.
Yeah. And what a great female role model they have in the house.
Oh, hopefully.
No, I think definitely, 100% definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting raising boys. I wrote a piece about it recently for Mamma Mia, actually.
I've read it,
Women's Day, because I thought, I always thought I would have a daughter. I was convinced I would have a daughter and that I would raise a strong woman to follow my lead. And obviously that's not happened. We did get a female cat last year in lockdown.
That's right.
I've needed someone else in the house.
A bit more feminine energy in there.
Exactly. I needed some feminine energy, but it's been a fun learning experience with boys, and actually realizing that raising boys is just as important in breaking down gender stereotypes and bringing more equality into the world. So
I've even noticed, so I've got one of each. My eldest is a boy, my youngest is a girl. But I even had to become conscious of how I parented them differently. It's like, hang on, like my own, what I've been brought up with. And it's like, kind of like, okay, hang on. I have to sort of take a step back and go, no, this we've got to change this up a little bit. So it's interesting what's
so much
ingrained.
internalized bias, haven't we, just from the way we've been brought up, or our, the way that we've experienced the world as women, and through a gendered lens, we kind of can't help it. And the article I wrote, I did make a point of saying I've been guilty of saying the wrong thing to my boys sometimes, telling them to toughen up and don't cry or whatever it might be. And actually, that's not what I want for them. I want them to be able to feel all of the emotions and express themselves and communicate and see people as people before they see the gender. So it's a work in progress.
Yes, sure. Being a parent is a work in progress. And a business owner.
Exactly. I think when you run out of, it's funny because there is, other advice I've been given. I think in the early days of your business, you get so excited, you've got shiny object syndrome. There are so many things I could be doing, and
so many possibilities,
and you see other people doing things. I want to do that. I want to launch that. I want to make that. And someone said to me, there's always time. You don't have to do it all in the first year or the first 3 years or even the first 10 years. The whole beauty of running your own business is that it can evolve and change, and the shiny objects will still be there later on. Like, it doesn't have to.
They'll probably be replaced by something else.
Exactly. Got to keep having things to aspire to and look forward to. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for your time today, Erin. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our chat as well. It's been a great way to spend a post-COVID Thursday. Sorry if I sound a bit blocked up still.
Yeah, literally a post-COVID for you.
Yeah. It's always great chatting with you.
Thanks, Erin. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. I've really enjoyed Erin's story, and I'm sure you have as well. We'll see you next time. See you later.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode of the She Will Shine podcast, we invite you to check out shewillshine.com.au. She Will Shine is the essential support network you need to grow a thriving, meaningful business. We can help you grow your network, connect and develop genuine relationships, be supported, and support others in building and growing a successful business on your terms. Say goodbye to working alone and become a member at shewillshine.com.au.